Fifth week of Lent, Year A. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Lord, to you, Lord.
Now a man was ill, Lazarus, from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So the sisters sent word to him, saying, "Master, the one you love is ill." When Jesus heard this, he said, "This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then, after this, he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles because the light is not in him." He said this and then told them, "Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I am going to awaken him." So the disciples said to him, "Master, if he is asleep, he will be saved." But Jesus was talking about his death, while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. So then Jesus said to them clearly, "Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there, that you may believe. Let us go to him." So Thomas, called Didymus, said to his disciples, "Let us also go to die with him." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary sat at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise." Martha said to him, "I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, "The teacher is here and is asking for you." As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him, for Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house, comforting her, saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." But Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping. He became perturbed and deeply troubled, and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Sir, come and see." And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that this man would not have died?" So Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, "Lord, by now there will be a stench, He has been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the crowd here, I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial cloths, and his face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
It's just the story of Lazarus, right? We've heard it 1,000 times. It's just the story of Lazarus. You know, Mary, Martha, Lazarus. Lazarus comes up out of the tomb. Lazarus comes up out of the tomb. This is not just another story. This is not just, three little pigs, wolf blowing down a house. No, this is a dead man who is really dead, not just mostly dead, but really dead, coming to life. Jesus had been in the city not too long before this. This is shortly after he's been in the city a couple of times for different feasts of the year, and the last one was Hanukkah, and he goes out from there. They threaten to kill him then, stone him then, and he goes out to the place where John was baptizing in the Jordan, which is across the Jordan near Jericho, just down the hills and over. And so when he waits there for 2 days, it takes him 2 days to climb up the hills to Jerusalem, and then up down the valley and up the hill over to Bethany. You can't do that so easily now, because in order to get to Bethany, you've got to go around the wall. And the wall goes right through Bethany on the top of the hill, which is above the valley of the Kidron Valley, and above the Garden of Gethsemane. But in any case, it's right over there. It's about 2 miles away, and you can walk there, and there's a path that you can take that would get you there. So he's going to take 4 days to get there. And Jesus says this is not going to end in death. This is not going to end in death. Martha, Mary, and Lazarus are people that Jesus obviously knows. The path is a place that he obviously follows, from Jerusalem out to Bethany, from Bethany back to Jerusalem. He seems to stay at their house. And it says that he loved them, that he loves him, right? Master, the man who you love, Lazarus, is dying. And then it says, and he loved Martha and Mary, and so he waited for 2 more days. This doesn't sound like love, right? This doesn't sound like the kind of love that we believe in nowadays, right? Love immediately drops everything and goes to everything to be with the person they love all the time. Go, always, always, always. If I love you, I'm going to be there. And if I'm not there, it means I don't love you. Except that God is love, right? And Jesus is God. Jesus is the Son of God. So it's possible that love waits sometimes. He loves Martha and Mary enough to help them to have faith in this gospel. And that's important. That's more important than rushing to make sure that he doesn't die. And they all believe that, right? This is the thing. Jesus keeps if Jesus wore glasses, he would say, "You believe that, right?" Both of them. He looks at them and says, "You believe that, right?" "Oh, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Of course I believe it." Except they're like us. We mostly believe it. We mostly have faith in God. And when the rubber hits the road, there comes a point at which we have to figure out, no, really, do we really believe? Do we really believe? Do our responses match what we say? The saying that he uses when his disciples say, you want to go back? They were just trying to stone you a little while ago, and you want to go back there? And Jesus talks about walking in the light while it's daylight, or versus stumbling, right? Well, who's the light, right? Not this last festival, the festival we skipped, but the festival before that, when he was in the city, is the festival when he met the man born blind. Okay, when he said, "I am the light of the world." So when he says, "Whoever walks with me is walking in the light," right? Whoever walks in the daylight is walking by the light of this world, right? Then you should be walking with me, even if it may seem that it's dark, because if you don't walk with me, you will stumble. You will stumble. Thomas called Didymus. That's the word that means twin, right? Thomas is the one, and Thomas. There was a churchman who a few years ago wrote a letter, and I said at the time, "Oh, this guy gets in trouble by telling the truth." You know, sometimes people get in trouble by lying, but some people get in trouble by telling the truth. Sometimes little kids do that, right? They get in trouble by telling the truth. "You know what my mommy and daddy were doing? They were drinking," right? Or whatever, right? And I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway, we get in trouble by not walking in the light. One thing that one of the commentators point out in this gospel that's also important. This is like the thing about him waiting. They send to Jesus to let him know that Lazarus is sick, right? Mary and Martha send someone to let him know that Lazarus is sick. So Jesus stays for 2 more days, and then he has this conversation with his disciples where he says, our brother, let's go see Lazarus. He's fallen asleep. And just like in English, just like in our modern language and the way that we use it, you can say, he rests in peace. He's fallen asleep. And you can mean that somebody has died, right? So the ambiguity and the possibility of saying 2 things with the same words existed in the language of Jesus, and it exists in our language. And so when he says he's fallen asleep, it's natural for the disciples to say, "Oh, well, that's good. He's resting. He'll get his strength back. He's going to live. It's all going to be good." And that's why Jesus waited, because he knew that Lazarus was a strong guy, healthy. He walks with us and all these sorts of things, and Jesus says, no, he died. He died. We're going to take care of that, though. But they sent somebody to tell him that he was sick. But it doesn't say anything about sending somebody to tell him that he died. Right? Jesus knows what's going on. And again, this fits with the Jesus waiting, because sometimes we look at God and we say, don't you know? Don't you understand? Why aren't you doing anything? But Jesus isn't. He's not doing nothing. He's not doing anything. He's doing something more important. This will be for glory. This will be for that the glory of the Son of Man may be seen. Well, which glory does the Son of Man have? The Son of Man has the same glory that God the Father, the Creator, has. He showed that by creating eyes for the guy, right? By taking clay and making his eyes able to see. So now he's going to show the same glory, the same power, not of creating life only, because that's a lesser thing. To create life from organic material, well, we do that. It's procreation, okay, we have God's help, those sorts of things, but we kind of do that, so that's not so extraordinary, right? But to create life from the dead? Nobody does that. That's right. Except for the divine, except for God. And remember, we're to the point with the Israelites that they understand there's only one God. So if they ever heard any other story about somebody rising from the dead under the power of other gods or of something like that, they would have said, well, yeah, but there is no other God. Okay? Thomas's statement, well, I suppose we'll all go and die with him then, right? Thomas's statement reminds us that Jesus is in a tough spot, that the situation is dire, right? These people are really mad at Jesus. And this is why St. John is using the word Jews here. Okay? Jesus is not using, because they're all Jews. These are all Jews. These are not Americans. They're not Germans. They're not Ukrainians. These are Jews. All of them are Jews. And so why would John say the Jews? Well, because there are certain Jews who are very, very opposed to him. And some of them are also friends of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Some of them are also people that are well known and that know Jesus very well. So they can go and run to the other ones in the city and say, hey, he's here. Get your rocks. I'm sure he'll come back into the city. Right? And so Thomas tells us the situation is really tough. That's what it was. Thomas speaks the truth. Right? Thomas is speaking the truth. The other thing that's happening here is Lazarus has died. Right? He's been in the tomb for 4 days. There are people hanging around the house to watch people cry. This was a custom. This is a burial custom that was common, and actually is still common. Sometimes you'll hear people talking about, I'm going to his house to sit Shiva. This is a Jewish tradition. It's not a German or an American tradition. But to sit with the people who have lost somebody, to just be with them in their grief. You don't have to say a bunch of things. You just are with them. And they weep with them, right? And they're with them in this time. And it's a beautiful thing. But Jesus doesn't come back till the fourth day. He doesn't do this till the fourth day because that proves that he's really dead. There were some who would say, you see, the spirit hangs around for 3 days, and then after that, the spirit goes. The spirit heads off to Sheol. But before that, he's kind of hanging out around the tomb, kind of thing. Okay? Now, the question is, do you believe he will rise again? Do you believe that? And she says, yes, Lord, I believe that he will rise again on the last day. Because that was the common belief. That on the last day, that at the end of time, the dead will rise for judgment. The dead will rise. But Jesus' response is something that he's done several times before this. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. And he identifies himself as God in this way. But we've heard him say, I am the living water. We've heard him say, I am the light of the world. We didn't hear him say, because we skipped it, this is when they were going to stone him, I am the good shepherd. And now he says, I am the resurrection and the life. Why is our belief in the resurrection, the general resurrection, important? Why is the belief of the people of Israel in the general resurrection important? St. Thomas Aquinas says that the resurrection, our belief in the resurrection helps us in several ways, 4 ways. That our belief in the resurrection helps us because it removes our sadness at death, right? It helps us not to be sad, hopeless, like those who do not believe. Our belief in the resurrection removes our fear of death. Because death is a transition point. Death is hard, but life is hard. And heaven is not hard. So the resurrection helps to keep us away from being afraid of death and recognizing that there are things that are worth dying for. Thirdly, St. Thomas Aquinas says, the resurrection helps us to remember, because it helps us to remember that there is final justice, it urges us towards good works, right? Because this life is not all there is. If this life was all there is, I could do whatever I wanted, right? I could get all that I could get by crawling over the top of you, and nobody would, in the end, I wouldn't have to pay for it if I got away with it until my death, right? Even if that means, I get rich, have a great time, crash a car into a tree and die, woo, I had fun while it lasted, right? But it leads us to good works. Actually, I'm moving into the 4th one, and the 4th thing it does is it keeps us away from evil. Because if there's a final judgment, then we say, maybe I shouldn't do that. Oh, I know nobody's going to catch me, but there's something after this, and I don't want that. I don't want that. Okay, so Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. And Martha says, yes, I believe, but Martha's the same one who says, Lord, there will be a stench, right? I believe, but, let's be real. Let's be real. Sometimes we do that, don't we? They secretly, she sends message secretly to Martha. Why secretly? Well, because if Jesus has been staying with them, they know what's going on. They know that some of the people who are wandering around their house, sitting with them and consoling with them, are looking around to see if they can see Jesus. Right? And both sisters say, if you had been here, our brother would not have died. They say the same thing, exactly the same words. So that's interesting. I didn't make anything of that. Maybe that's something for you to take home and make something of. Jesus is deeply troubled, it says. Splankizomai is the word, if I remember right, the Greek word, and it means that he's troubled in his guts. His guts are stirred up, right? So at the deepest part of his emotions, he gets stirred up. Why does he do this? Because here is the first sally in his final battle. The last enemy to be destroyed, says St. Paul, is death. So Jesus is going to be fighting death right now. And he's going to fight death again, right? But that time, it's going to put him on the cross. And by the way, St. John Paul, when he wrote about the cross, that was one of his insights that I was just fascinated by. Because when he wrote about the cross, he said, when we see the terror of the cross, when we see the horror of the cross, when we see the power of the cross over Jesus, who submits to it, it's true. But when we see the power of the cross over Jesus, if the cross can do that to Jesus, if death can do that to Jesus, if sin can do that to Jesus, imagine what it does to you and me. But we're Americans, right? Come on, bring it on. Sin, fight, fight, fight. Oh, take it, right? The wisdom of the saints, you know what that says about sin? Run, run, fast, run to the Father's arms, get away. It'll kill you. It'll kill you. And so Jesus is deeply moved. Now there are other explanations for this, and it also says that he's perturbed. It says he's perturbed and deeply moved. That perturbation is the one that I hear different things about why he's feeling these emotions. The people who see him say, "See how he loved him." He's deeply moved because he loved him, and that may be part of it. Some say he's deeply moved because there's a lack of faith around, right? Some say he's deeply moved, and here, this one about death. I think this is a beautiful way to understand what's going on. Oh, and they say, as they see him weeping, could this man who healed a blind man not have done something to keep him from dying? The question is phrased, you can phrase a question in Greek in such a way that you expect a positive answer, right? A few weeks ago we had something where you can expect a negative answer. Here, they're expecting a positive answer. In other words, the answer is yes. Yes, he could have done something. But what he is doing is important. It's for the glory of God. And so he approaches another reason why this approach to death is so significant, because it's described as a cave with a stone that is rolled in front of it. Where else have you heard that? Right? Jesus. Jesus' tomb, too, is described in the same way. So as Jesus approaches this tomb, he's approaching his own tomb. Right? And we know that he's going to win. And he knows that he's going to win. But he knows the cost. And the cost is greater for him than we think we know. Because he bears the weight of our sins in a way that none of us can. He bears his kenosis, his lowering himself for us in a way that none of us could possibly do. If I died on a cross, I could not save the world. Because I don't have that broad of shoulders. But Jesus does, being fully divine and fully human. And so Jesus comes and he says a prayer. He says, I believe, if you believe, you will see. And then he says, Father, thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me. But I'm saying this out loud so that they can believe that you hear me. Lazarus, come out. The hour is coming. And it indeed is already here, when those who hear my voice will come out of their graves. That's from chapter 5 of John's Gospel. Jesus said he was going to do this way back when. What does Lazarus do? He hears and he comes out. And remember that what Jesus does here is not the resurrection. Okay? All of this shows that he is the resurrection. He has the power to raise from the dead. But what happens at the resurrection and what is promised for us after the resurrection is far beyond this. Because Lazarus dies, Lazarus rises to die again. The little girl, Talitha Koum, the little girl rises to die again. But Jesus rises to never die. And when we say in the Creed, I believe in the resurrection of the body, I believe in the resurrection of the dead and life everlasting, we say that we believe the same for us. Not just that Jesus rose to never die, but that we have the promise to rise and never die. You can see why we should avoid sin, right? Because if we have to live forever in the state of sin, it's a terrible thing. God didn't cut off the people from Adam and Eve from the tree of life because he wanted to punish them. He wanted to save them from themselves. Because if they'd have eaten for the tree of life in that state, You know, Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, and Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula, that these folks were, kind of contemporaries. They were kind of around the same time. And both of these are stories of a life that is unnatural, of a life that is not supernatural. And it's fascinating what they say about these things by reading those stories. So in any case, that's probably more than I probably should have stopped with that he raises us to never die. And here's the last thing. There are many Jews who come to believe. In other words, those who have set themselves up as enemies have come to believe in Jesus because of this. Now, if that's not glorious, well, then just look at the resurrection of Jesus and the resurrection of Lazarus, and you'll see some other glorious things there. So thanks for listening, and kept you really late tonight.
The same symbolism of someone who, basically kind of lived a wayward life and then turns and comes to believe, and, like the Jews that have come to believe. So wouldn't it be the same in a way if you're thinking about somebody who's lived a decadent lifestyle and now all of a sudden it's like, there is more to life. I'm changing, in which some of the saints did, like St. Paul, St. Augustine. That's, I think, fits that same storyline.
There is more joy in heaven over one sinner who returns than over 99 righteous who have no need of repentance. And that's when the big brother in all of us says, yeah, but I'm always here. I've been always here. You never gave me a calf. Everything I have is yours. Beautiful. Beautiful what Jesus does with some of these things. So